Are there any other papers, extras? Make sure I get the information to you. Okay, so attributes of a set, we talked about that. How much clay should I start with to get a good soup cereal bowl, a good salad small serving bowl, a good small vase, a good medium vase or bottle? Okay, I'm going to start with a good soup cereal bowl. And for me, when I am throwing a good soup cereal bowl, I just have to have some Bisqueware pieces right here. Thank you. Pass that back to Con. This right here is a good soup cereal bowl. Okay, it's not huge, it's not small. It's going to hold a nice amount of whatever you put in there. And I start with 1.7 pounds of clay every time. And so what I do is I come over here, and there's a scale right back here. And if you've never used a digital scale, there's something called taring, T-A-R-E. And what that means is whatever's on the scale is set to 0. So if I were to put something on there and then I'm going to add to it, but I only want to weigh what's being added, I come in here and I hit this tare button and I hold it, and then it'll zero it out. So right now, it's saying that there's 0 weight on that scale. So if I put something else on it, that garbage can weighs 1.5 pounds. Okay? So I'm going to take this out. So what you want to do is look at this. Now this says negative 2.4. So I need to make sure that I tare that again to 0. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab some clay. And there's 2 ways you could do this. You can start to wedge it and then cut it, or you can cut it and then start to wedge it. And it doesn't matter either way. We're going to cut it and then start to wedge it. We're going to just grab this. And when I start a project, I have an hour, and I need to throw at least 8 bowls today. Well, maybe 6. So I'm going to throw you a couple of ways to throw bowls. I'm going to throw a couple of bottles and a couple of vases if we get to that. But I'm going to come here, I'm going to weigh that. That says 3.3 pounds. If I cut that in half, I'm looking at 1.65 pounds, right? Okay, so I could go exactly in half. That's 1.7. That's 1.6. So I need to add a tiny bit to that. I'm going to come in here. One 7, 1 4. So now I'm just going to grab little bits of clay and put it on there. 1 7, and I keep those together, and then I'll wedge them up. So we'll go here. That's a 1 6. Actually, it's a 1 5. There's a 1 7. So that's 4 bowls, 2 pounds. And for you, I'm going to recommend that you prep 2 or 3 chunks of clay every day. You choose what that looks like. You kind of have had enough throwing time, and you understand it enough, you can probably figure out what you can do in a day and how much time it takes and all that great stuff. All right, 3.2, 1.9, take a little bit off. Now I do it to 1.7. I know potters who will do it to like 1.73. And they get very, very particular on how their clay is. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do 7. wedge this up. Plus I'm gonna wedge up some other stuff so that I can throw bottles and vases. Now, if 1.7 is my bowl, for you, you might wanna throw a 1.8 or 1.9 because I'm gonna be able to stretch mine thinner and further out than you might be able to. You might not. Maybe you'll start with a 1.9 at the beginning, and by the time you're done, you'll be throwing 1.7s, and they'll be the same size. You choose what that looks like. Okay, now let's move here. And we're gonna wedge this up. And I know you're like, we know how to wedge, but you've got to. So we're just gonna wedge out these little chunks. While we're doing this, do you have any comments, questions, concerns? Your mugs are due tonight. What is today, 8/8? If you're still behind on them, if I got them by tomorrow night, that'll be okay. I'm not doing a firing until Friday, but that means they need to be turned in by Wednesday so that they can dry enough so I can get them fired over the weekend. You can't turn them in wet on Friday and expect them to be fired on Friday. There's a whole kiln load that's cooling down. Probably cooled down by now. We're gonna pull those out by Thursday and talk about some glazing options that you have. See if I can't confuse you thoroughly. So that's 5, there's 6. Thank goodness you're here. Those who have to watch this at home, just get that dead screen for now. Just my voice in the background, like nightmares. I'm doing this thing for Christmas for my wife, and I dreamt about it all night long. So, since we have a little bit of time here. So, she's gonna get a Christmas present on Thanksgiving. And it's a manuscript. And this manuscript is a movie screenplay. And this movie screenplay, it's not that in-depth, but it's kind of funny. She loves Hallmark movies, like Christmas Hallmark movies. She loves them. I hate them, although I get sucked into them every time. Every time one's on, I'm like, huh. And that shows you how smart I am. But anyways, so I'm writing this Hallmark with ChatGPT. It's helping me write this manuscript for a movie with cue cards and like dialogue. And so I was just thinking about all the scenarios in my dream last night.
We all end the same, so.
Well, yeah, under a big Christmas tree somewhere. It's gonna be awesome. But, so she's getting the manuscript for Christmas, but then all my kids and then some of our friends are in on it, and we're going to make a small film. So we're gonna make little snippets and then put it together. That's the hope. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. Getting there. First thing I'm gonna do is throw a bowl with very little explanation, if at all. And I want you to just look at it. Just look at what I'm doing and see the differences between throwing a cylinder and throwing a bowl. before I do that, I'm gonna grab a ruler. But if you look over here and you see all these bowls, I have 3 types of bowls over here. I have soup cereal bowls, so functional. I have small serving bowls, or sometimes I call these salad bowls. Okay, and I use about 2.8 pounds for those. They're bigger, they hold a good salad, or they serve small something. And then I have a good serving bowl. Okay, actually I would call this like a small mashed potato bowl. For Thanksgiving I have a couple of really big ones that hold like all the potatoes. But something like that, and that's gonna be about 5 pounds of clay, roughly. You don't have to make those, but as you look over here, I have a bunch of these, and most of them are pretty similar, but some of them are slightly different. And what I do is I make a bunch of them. And then I come in and I line them up. And I go, oh, these are all the same height, these are all the same width, and I make sure that those get into the set. Oh, these stack really well together. And that's one of the things you're going to do as well as you are making. You're going to make a bunch. Okay. Got this. Here. We'll get to this. Set my tools down somewhere. All right. So we got our buckets, our tools, and I've got a ruler. You don't have to have a ruler. You can just go for it. But I'm going to show you what we use a ruler for in a minute. All right. This is a wheel. This is a Brent C wheel. Wait, you guys know how to throw it, right? A little bit. Sort of. That good? Okay. I'm going to turn that on, make sure it works. Nice. And we're going to start. So, is there any extra of those papers? I just need to remember to give you all the information. If we start missing something, let me know. Pat that down. Start it. I decided to cone that up twice. A lot of your little write-ups for your cylinders were quite insightful. I think you're getting it. You may be like, but I don't get it every time. It's okay. You're still brand new. Compressing this rim is so important. So I'm just going to pinch right here. I'm just going to gently press down. Okay, that was different than the other thing, making a cylinder. Pedal wants to go fast. Anyone want to know why this pedal wants to go fast? What? No. It's because it's on this side of the wall and I never use it. And it's like, oh, I'm so excited that I get to be used by Mr. Jones today. That's what it's saying. I'm kidding. I'm gonna whoa, that's a lot of water. I'm gonna rib this. If you didn't practice your ribbing, now's a good time to start. Ribbing the inside does 3 things for us. It compresses it, it smooths it, and it helps to give us that nice bowl shape. That's what that rib is designed for. You go in there and give this nice bowl shape. I'm gonna rib the outside. And will you grab me a paper towel? Just one. Okay, I'm gonna use my wood rib instead of my wood knife to clean up underneath. And the reason for this is it slides underneath really well without hitting the bowl itself. So we're gonna come in here and just hold that, kick that under like so. 2 hands. And by doing this, it starts to set our foot automatically. Now we're going to take our paper towel and we're going to take it, a little chunk, we're going to fold it, keep track of that fold, dip it in the water. That fold comes towards me. I'm going to turn on my wheel. I'm just going to gently press down on my rim. It cleans it up, compresses it, and it rounds it out. Makes it stronger, makes the whole glaze better, makes it so it doesn't chip. I'm gonna set that there. We use paper towels because if you ever walk away from your wheel, turn your wheel off, okay? It would suck if I came back and then accidentally hit my pedal and it was on and it went flying. Grab a towel. So, this is exactly how we pull a bowl off, and then I'm going to come back and walk you through the steps. Like I could come here, make sure my wheel's off, I'd drop my pedal and it would hit my towel on the pedal, that would suck. You're going to grab a board, okay? This board will hold one slightly larger bowl. This is going to hold one bowl. You can also put them on a bigger board, so you have like 2 or 3 on a board. You're gonna run out of room super quickly, and so you're gonna have to kind of follow this sequence that we talk about in a minute. But these small boards fit on your bucket just fine. You can't see that, but it's on the bucket. And what I'm gonna do, if you look at my bowl, do you see how it's not shiny? Remember when I kept telling you, you need to practice taking all of your water out. You need to practice, because if your bowl's shiny and you go to lift it, it's going to be gooey and it's going to want to collapse. But because we've compressed it, we've taken the water out, I can now cut it with dry hands. I'm going to be able to lift and pop this off of the wheel with very little bending. So that looks like this. So we're going to cut underneath. Make sure you use your wood rib underneath. We're going to come underneath. You can do it with it spinning or not spinning. You choose. I'm going to wrap it around my index fingers, push straight down on my wheel, and when I pull towards me, I'm going to bring my elbows out. If I don't, this wire tool is going to lift up and it's going to cut underneath. Now, if your bowl is already thin, you're still going to cut underneath. I'm going to cut underneath, set that there. My hands are cleanish. I'm going to come in here, take our thumb and our middle finger, we're going to twist and lift up. And that bowl should just pop right up. What a lot of you are going to want to do, you're going to want to come under here and lift. As you do that, one, the suction cup that is your bowl isn't going to want to release. You have to twist it. And two, you're going to taco your bowl. You're going to come in here and it's going to go, okay, you don't want that. Let me set that there. Then we let it sit out. The longer it sits out today, the better. So for me, I'm going to want this to sit out for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then when I put a bag on it, the rim will be a little bit more stiff. Now, you don't have that option because you're running off to class. So in a minute, I'm going to show you how to bag those up. Set that aside. Let's do that again. Oh, I was going to show you one thing before I go on. On this, and my ruler, I'm going to come in here and measure. I am at 6 inches across, okay? And then I'm at just under 4 inches tall. You can write that down, okay? Whatever you get to first, then you can try to get to again. You don't have to. Usually, I don't measure my first one. I usually start measuring my third one because that gets me into throwing a little bit. But you can kind of take measurements. For the most part, though, we're not too worried about exactness on this. We're worried about the effort that goes into it. So 6 across, just under 4 tall. Let's see if we can't do that again. All right, so I'm going to seal this up. I'm going to cone this up. I'm going to bring it down. Now it's still wobbling, that's fine. And then I'm going to refine it. So I'm going to come in here, push in a little bit, push down a little bit. It's okay that it wobbles. And just wait for that to give me a good sigh of relief. And then I slowly take my hands off. Now we're going to open it. So the first opening is nearly identical to a cylinder. So I'm going to push in, except for I almost always try to make sure my bottom is thicker. I want to cut a nice foot into my bottom. So it's going to be round here, and then it's going to have a foot cut underneath it. And if I'm at less than 1/4 inch thick, I'm not going to have a deep foot. But if I'm at 3/8 to 1/2 inch thick, I'm going to be able to cut this nice deep foot into the bottom, and it looks like my bowl's just raised up and beautiful and like proud to be alive. It's a pretty sweet thing. We'll show you what that means. All right, check. That looks good to me. It's a little thick, which is great for a bowl. I'm going to check my rim. Always and forever, press lightly on your rim. It's going to stop some of that cracking that happens as you stretch it. All right, now ring finger and middle finger are going to pull towards my thumb. Before I pulled straight towards my thumb stayed where it was at, but this time I'm going to pull towards my thumb. About halfway through the pull, I'm going to start swooping up and lifting. My thumb stays where it's at, except for it's going to move upwards. So I'm going to start to create my bowl shape from the start. I hold my thumb with my sponge, pull towards me, and then we're going to lift and swoop. So some things to look for. In this first pull, the outside is still a little bit tapered in. The inside starts to have a roundness to it. Now we're going to come over here to our pulling. You remember when I'm like, you've got to get your thumbs on the outside and your index fingers pushed together? This right now is so that we can shape a bowl. We're going to take our inside hand and move it out and up while my outside hand is going to guide and lift. Now, I usually do this. That's one pull, 2 pulls, and then a refinement pull. So I do everything in about 3. You're going to do this in about 5 or 6. So I'm going to show you in 5 or 6. So we're going to come here. I'm going to push outwards with my index finger. My right hand outside index finger is going to push under. I'm going to grab that clay and I'm going to swoop upwards. What I'm looking for, the outside is straight, the inside has the curve at the bottom. Now, I know most of you grew up on Disney, right? They did the little light wand thing that showed you the Disney ears, right? You remember that? That's all we're doing. We're literally drawing the shape of our bowl. I mean, we're not going to be like looping around. We're just drawing the shape. But instead of some animator putting it in later, we're going to use clay. So I'm going to come down to the bottom. My thumbs are touching. I'm going to push under, over, out just a little bit, and then up. If you go out too far, you're going to create a shelf or shoulders, and it's going to flop because gravity's not going to hold it. The next thing for you, as we get the clay moving up and out, slow your wheel down. Centrifugal force will throw this rim really quickly out, and that's a problem. Okay, I'm good here. There's still more clay. I could probably pull it up some more. If you want to come in with your ruler and start to measure, I'm at 5 3/8 inches. And I'm just over 4 inches. So when I put my rib in there and stretch it, I'm going to push out a little bit and lift up. It's actually going to widen my bowl and shorten it just a little bit. So I'm going to just come in here. I'm going to come in with my left hand. It's going to, the round part is pointing at my knee. That's something super important. Just think about this shape right here as it rounds out the bowl. If it's pointed to the middle, I'm going to be digging in with this. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to start right about where it transitions down. And this is probably the only move I do with one hand. You can support with your other, but I want to come in with my left hand. It's going to hit the bottom and bend. I want to be able to see what's going on. I'm going to go to the center, nice and calm and controlled, and then I'm going to start pushing out. And then as I get to the wall, I'm going to slowly release pressure and lift up, and slowly release there. And then we're going to measure. Almost 6, 4 on the dot. So it can go down a little bit more, a little wider. Again, if you don't want to measure and just want to throw, that's fine. One of the things I do is I just throw a bunch and then stack them according to size. Because I started with the same amount of clay, it all ends up pretty similar, but not exact. And so I just kind of go, yeah, that looks good. But that over there, I threw 32 bowls. I think that's how many bowls that is. Just so I had a huge amount. Just rib that. Once you start ribbing, do not add water. If you add water, you're going to have to soak it up and rib it again. So do you see how dry that looks? That's really important. I'm going to use the flat side of my rib on the outside. I'm just going to bend and lift up. Okay. I want the curve on the inside. The outside curve I'm not worried too much about because we're going to trim that up later. Okay, so we're going to cut that shape just a little bit more later. We're going to use my wood knife. Always put your wood knife in the water first. And then we're going to use our paper towels. We use paper towels. A lot of potters use chamois, which is a leather. Some use plastic bags. We use paper towels because if you forget about this and it makes it into the recycle bin, it's not that big of a deal. It makes a little stink, but it doesn't make a problem. I'm gonna come in here and just clean up my rim. All right, so very specifically, if you haven't gotten your board yet, go get your board. Turn your wheel off, go get your board. Make sure your hands are dry and clean. Make sure that the bowl is dry and clean. Again, you can do this with your wheel spinning or not spinning. If you don't trust yourself with the wheel spinning, just turn your wheel off. We're just gonna come in here, we're gonna push down, pull, the elbows are gonna come out. I'll reach at the bottom, grab here, I'm gonna twist and lift just a little bit. When you're having a problem, come find me. Almost always, your bowl will be too thick or too wet to start with. Like the outside will be wet. I'll be like, let's clean that up. Well, it's already been cut. That's fine, we can fix that. Okay, and you're gonna come in here. Now, what you don't wanna do is cut this, then go find your bowl, then talk to your friends, then check your TikTok account or whatever you're doing, and then come back 8 minutes later, because that bowl is gonna sit back down onto the wheel. You're gonna go to grab it and it's gonna be stuck again. Okay, not that big of a deal. You just have to cut it. Lift that and set that there. Let's see how we did. That's not bad. Not bad. All right, let's do it again. Do you have any questions on anything so far? I don't even know what time it is. Start it. Start it. Now, I just noticed something. I'm always telling you not to touch your clay and then start your wheel. I wasn't touching my clay. I just had my hands right there. So I wasn't adding any pressure to it, so it looked like this. I was down here, but I wasn't like gripping my clay and then starting the wheel. So it's basically this to there, but I was just hanging out here and letting that clay loosely go through my hands. After this one, I'm going to show you another way to throw a bowl. This one I'm going to show you another rim. And there's a lot of things we can do. We can make these decorative, make these a little bit fancier. So technically a soup bowl has a rim that tilts out just a little bit, okay? And I always call these soup bowls. I don't need soup bowls and cereal bowls. I just kind of do all the same thing. I do have some pasta bowls that are kind of laid out. Those are a little bit harder to do. Pull this towards us, and then we're going to swoop upwards. Hit that rim again. Push under with my right hand, push out with my left hand. My thumbs are holding, and move over and up. So this is throwing the clay, and it's literally taking clay and moving it up, 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 up. Take the water out with the wheel spinning. Now I want you to look here. Is that the same bowl as one of the ones I just threw? Are they the same? No. What's different about this one? It's smaller. Did I start with the same amount of clay? Yes. Is that still a bowl? Yes. And that's something I need you to hold on to for a minute. Let's pull this back. How many of you are interested in bottles or vases? Yeah? Okay, we'll throw a couple at the end. I'm gonna rib this. What kinds of things have I missed on that paper? I'm gonna talk about the different ways of throwing a bowl in a second. You kind of see how wobbly that is? Like amateur hour up here. Here's the best part about a wobble. You ready? A little wobble like that. Can you see it? Can you see it there? But can you see it there? Not really. You can see it there. So unless your bowl's sitting on your kitchen counter, like on a Lazy Susan or something spinning, you're not gonna be able to see it wobbly. Maybe if you stare at it while it's in the microwave, you'll be like, oh, that bowl is so wobbly. Rib that. I'm going to hit my rim, clean up the bottom. Your rim and clean up the bottom can happen whenever. One over the other doesn't matter. Now, let's lay this rim down just a little bit up at the top. And there's a couple of ways to do it. I find this is the easiest. I'm just gonna come in with one of my ribs. I'm gonna use my metal one. I'm gonna slow my wheel down. I'm gonna hit the top. I'm gonna support, and all I'm gonna do is take this clay in between my hands and just lay it over. So just nice and slow. Just come in here. And now we have a nice soup bowl. You can fill the soup up to that line. You have extra rim. What kind of soup are you eating out of that? Minestrone? Chicken noodle? Anyone else? Hey, you have bowls at my house, at your house, my bowls. At least you should. The BYU bowls. Marcy broke one of those last night at our house.
Those are yours?
I made those with the Y in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier before you were here. We missed you. Grab your board. And I'm just gonna pull this off. So you got yourself a nice little bowl. And we're gonna talk about how to clean that up. But in fact, if you do a good job of cleaning up the bottom now, you barely have to touch the bottom later. Trimming is a whole nother animal. And I'm gonna show you how to do that, not today. Those of you who choose to do this, we're gonna learn how to do it later. Trimming is one of the coolest things in the world. Okay, let me show you how to throw a bowl a different way. So, we start, we seal, we cone, we bring it down, we refine it. No, before I show you the different way, I want to talk again about size. So, as you're working, and you're going, you're gonna hit that rim, and you're throwing these bowls, and that's one pull, and then you do a second pull, and maybe it's like, oh crap. And every time you're doing your second or your third or your fourth pull, you get something like this. You're like, okay, I'm never gonna be able to make a bowl set. Might as well just quit. Don't quit. You can do this. You can come here. Sometimes when I rush, I'm like at 95% centered, and then when I throw a bowl, it gets wobbly super quick. So make sure it's really centered. All right, we're gonna open this. Bottom's a little bit thicker, that's good. Hit the rim and pull towards me. I'm gonna swoop upwards. So it's kind of like throwing a cylinder with a round bottom. Remember how kind of picky I was? I'm like, your cylinder's gotta be square. But now I'm like, it's okay that it's round. Okay, we're okay with that. But we wanna do this on purpose. So we have that roundness. And squeeze my rim just a little bit. Okay, I look here and I go, there's a lot of clay here. Is that a bowl? If I took off all this extra clay, it would be. It would be like a really sweet, like spicy sriracha dipping bowl, right? That would be sick. I have a couple like that. You just put like a spicy sauce in there, or if you want just a tiny bowl of yogurt, right? But we're gonna pull it up one more time. And let's say you go and it flops, go halfway. Push this over here and lift that up. Is that a bowl? Is that bowl? No, but it doesn't really matter. So we're gonna come here, I'm gonna stop right now. I'm going to rib this. That's going to take the water out, compress it, shape it. Rib the outside. I'm not worried that the outside has much shape to it because I'm gonna trim that up later. Or have a bowl that has slightly square sides, that's fine too. I'm gonna hit my rim. And then I'm gonna clean up the bottom. Now, there's more clay at the bottom. So be careful. Not to take off too much. And then we're going to grab our boards. Gonna cut that. Dry the hands off. As you're doing this, if you have any issues consistently, think through it. Now, that's a bowl with a really thick bottom, okay? No big deal. When we let this get to leather hard, we're gonna flip this guy over and we're gonna trim that out into a nice bowl. Or we're gonna trim it a little bit and you're gonna have a slightly heavy small bowl. For your first ones, not that big of a deal, okay? The goal for making a bowl set, if that's what you choose to do, is not that you make my bowl set. That took me a long time to get to. If you can make bowls as good as me by the end of your first semester, that's fantastic. If you can't, and yours is a little thick, a little wobbly, a little off, it'll be okay. We're not too worried about that. All right, here's another way to make a bowl. I'm gonna take about the same amount of clay. even change my clock from daylight savings time, if not 10. Okay, so down on one of your questions, it's like, on the different ways of throwing a bowl, what is something specific for number 2? So number 2, we're going to open it, okay, just like we would a cylinder. We're going to compress our rim. We're going to open it towards us a little bit without swooping. Kind of like what we would do with a cylinder. And then we're going to lift. And when we lift, we're going to, instead of going straight up just like a cylinder, we're going to taper out just a tiny bit. So I'm going to lift straight up. And taper just a tiny bit. Now, I'm going to do 2 pulls there. So I have like a tapered cylinder, okay? The bottom is fairly flat. There's a little bit of a curve, not too much. What we want to avoid as much as possible with bowls is that you pull it way out and then go straight up. That's a dog dish, or I have like baking dishes that are like that, where they're flat with just a small side. And you take those and you put in like some sausage and some eggs and scramble some eggs and throw it in there with some cheese on top, throw those in your oven, and then they come out and they're all like this little baked omelet, and pretty awesome. But it has a flat bottom, okay? We're trying to make a bowl where our spoon or our fork goes down and kind of rounds out. All right, we get here. The next very specific thing, we're gonna compress the rim again really well. I'm gonna pinch with my left hand. I'm going to push over the top really well. I'm pinching and pushing down. I'm not trying to add water. I'm not trying to move it. I'm just trying to really compress that. Then I'm going to give it a light rib on the inside and a light rib on the outside. That just helps clean it up, compress it, shows me what's going on. Now, we're going to take our wood rib, and you could use a metal rib if you want, but I'm going to take my wood rib, I'm going to put it down at the bottom. Let's pretend my cup or my cylinder's coming up like this. I'm going to put it down at the bottom here, and I'm going to push out a little bit, and then lift up. I'm going to kind of let this roundness do its job. So I'm just going to start the wheel, and it's just support on the outside. I'm going to push out, get the whole of my rib touching, and then push out and start to lift. Oops, up. Picked up some clay. And then I'm just going to kind of lean that out just a little bit. So this is stretching. This is not pulling the clay, it's stretching. And if we don't compress the rim, we're going to get cracking, almost guaranteed. When we pull the clay, that cracking goes away a lot of times because we're actually compressing the clay as we move. But this is, again, just stretching. It's taking thicker clay and stretching it in one direction. And then from here, we're going to come in and just gently work the bottom. It can be a little rounder, it could be flat, but you could eat out of that. That would make a nice little small beef stew bowl or something like that. Or shepherd's pie, individual shepherd's pie you could put in there. That would be good. Clean up the bottom. If you're ever getting slumping, it's because you've pushed way too far out. If you're ever getting cracking, it's because you pushed too far out and then tried to bring it back in. And I'm talking down here at the bottom of your piece. If your bowl is a little wobbly, that'll be okay. You can come in here and right now and hold it. If you want to make it a decorative piece, you could come in here and play around with whatever and make it decorative. It could be a ring holder. I mean, there's all kinds of things we can do with these bowls. Now, for you, want me to show you how to do that again, the second way? Yeah. You never know with your class, you're so noisy. So let's talk about, I'll do another bowl real quick, and I'll do a bottle and vase. Are we more interested in bottles or vases? Bottle has a closed neck that's small. A vase has open. Bottles?
Wait.
Bottles are fun. All right, we're going to seal this, cone this, bring it down. Let's talk about the two directions you can go on the wheel. On Thursday, we're going to do our hand building demo. We'll talk about options that you have, and then you can decide what you're going to do. So on the wheel, if you choose to do 9 days on the wheel, how many should you make? And the answer is going to be slightly different, but the answer is not 4. The answer is 2 or 3 attempts a day. Now, you're not going to be throwing on the 9th day. You're probably not going to be throwing on the 8th day. You might be. Maybe you're like, I finally freaking got it. And I'm making sweet bowls. And then you're coming in the afternoon and you're like, I got to get these bowls. All these are going in the recycle bin. I'm finally figuring this out. That's great. By the whatever day it is, 2 weeks before Christmas break, your projects are due. So the 9th day, your projects are due 100%. I have to have them so they can dry, so that you can, what am I making? Oh, I'm making a cylinder. So that they can get fired, so the next week we can glaze them so that you can take them home before the break and before semester ends. So it's 2 or 3 a day attempts. I'm not going to keep track of that for you. You don't really need to keep track. I am going to ask you when you grade yourself, how many did you throw? And like that one that flopped, that counts as an attempt. Okay? You save some, that counts. You trim some and they get ruined, that counts. So I'm going to stop right there. Let's say we have problems after this. I'm just going to come in. It's super thick. It'll be okay. And I'm just going to gently press out. And lift up. Move slowly. It wants you to move slowly. It's a pretty nice bowl. Now we're going to trim off the outside. If you don't get it all trimmed off on the outside, we'll learn to trim. Again, that's a whole nother animal. The inside's what matters right now. It's kind of my philosophy of life anyways. That's what. Say that again?
How would you do
A rim style? So, like that's just like a a little freeform rim. The soup bowl is another rim where you drop it a little bit. There are a bunch of different rims you can do. Let's see if I can. So you saw how that worked. I'm actually going to pull this up just a little bit more, because I want to thicken this rim. I'm just pressing down on it. And then I'm going to come in here and split it. My needle tool. And I don't have a wood knife. We'll use our wood rib. Put that in there to widen that out just a little bit. Come in here and touch that. So you could leave it like that. That's a little fragile, or sometimes we'll come in and we'll if you want to know a lot about different rims, there are a couple of good videos out there. There's like 10 ways to address your rim on a bowl. So we could have something like that. One of my favorite serving bowls has this sort of a rim on it, and it's black with this white on it, and it's pretty awesome. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, let's cut this off. It's still thick on the bottom. We'll talk about how we trim these up later. Back to yours, and I'm gonna throw slightly larger for a bottle. Well, I'm gonna make a vase first. Yeah, and then a bottle. So this is 3 pounds. You can start with 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, whatever. But we're gonna start by making a cylinder for a vase or for a bottle. So the first requirement for any of this, remember, it's 9 days. 9 days of work, which really means 8, and then whatever you need to do to finish up on the 9th day. If you're completely done, but you've come in on your own time, or you're completely done, and we all look at it and go, yeah, it looks like you did good work, and you're done on the 9th day. I'm not gonna be like, and you have to do something on the 9th day. I don't know, maybe I will say that. Depends on my mood, honestly. So I'm gonna pull this out, and I'm gonna lift it up. So I'm gonna go pretty simple on the shapes of this vase and this bottle. So I get a cylinder made, just that simple. And it could be shorter than this, it'll be okay. Get the rim pointed in a little bit. We're gonna rib it, just the outside. You can rib the inside if you want. And then I'm gonna shape it, and I'm gonna grab at the bottom. I'm gonna start to lift up, and then I'm gonna move out a little bit, and then back in. Whichever direction my hands are going, if I'm going out, my outside hand is gonna be above. If I'm going in, my inside hand is gonna be above. So if I'm going out, it looks like this. I'm above this way. If I'm going in, it looks like this, and it's coming in. And that way the clay will follow my hands. So we're gonna come in here, make sure there's plenty of water, grab the clay, push out just a little bit. My outside hand is above, it's just kind of guiding. Then my inside hand comes above, and I move inward. as you start to play around with vases and bottles, you're gonna get flopping. You're gonna get really thick bottoms or really floppy bottoms because you're pushing out too far or not grabbing the clay. It can be fixed if it's thick. If it's flopping, it can't really be fixed. But after a couple of tries, you can holler and I'll come over and we'll kind of go over a few things. Now, before I do anything else, I'm gonna rib this. Now, let's go back to you and what is a set for you? A set is 4, right? It really is. So I have this shape. Now, if I want just a vase, that is a vase. Or I can come and bring the rim out. And if I'm gonna do that, add a little bit of water here. I'm just gonna pinch, come right below, and I'm gonna push in a little bit, and then just draw this out. Not too quickly. And then we got that. Clean up the bottom. If you don't clean up the bottom, if you don't rib it, if it's not dry and you go to take your projects off, it's going to slip all over the place. You're going to struggle and it's going to want to flop. And you might cry. You might not cry. I don't know. Okay, so a set for you starts with 9 days, right? So you spend your 9 class periods. If you miss a day, you need to make it up. You're making 2 or 3 somethings a day, or at least attempting, okay? First day you're making, second day you're making, third day you're gonna start to trim and make. So you might trim a couple, you might make a couple, you might only trim. It just depends on what's going on. Fourth day, hopefully you have a couple to trim, hopefully you have a couple to make. And you're gonna kind of bounce back and forth until you start to have a decent grouping. And then you're going to, after 7-8 days, you're gonna look at your projects and you're gonna go, I like these 4. And then you're gonna get rid of the rest. Okay, because you've trimmed some up, you've decorated some, whatever works for you. Now, on decoration, let me get back to you for a second. So your set is going to be 4, although it could be 3. Really, it's if you put in the effort but only want to save the 3, that's fine. If you did 9 days, I expect you to save some. 1's not enough for 9 days. You should have more than that. If you do the 3, 4, 5 day route, you may only save 1 bowl if that's what you want, because you're going to be doing something on hand building, and that's perfectly acceptable. And you get to decide that on Thursday when we show you the hand built projects. But the most you're going to be able to fire in this bowl-ish size is 5. That's the most. We won't have time or space to do more than that. You can be like, but I got 12 really sick bowls. 5. So you have 4 plus an extra. I really don't have any extra space at the end of the semester. So I'm going to pull another cylinder. Now, to make a bottle, I need to make sure that I have extra clay. If I'm really thin up top, the bottle is not going to form. So I make sure everything is a nice uniform thickness. Get up there. And I could shape it But to start with, I recommend doing basically the shape of like a Coke bottle. So it comes up and then goes in. There's not a whole lot of out to it. There's a lot of gravity issues when it comes to extra shape in bottles. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but you've got to take extra care and caution. So we're going to get up here. Before I start shaping at all, you've got to make sure the water comes out. So a small vase is going to be 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds. A medium vase, which is what I'm doing right now, is going to be about 3 pounds. The kind of vases you see on your table are probably going to be like 4 pounds. And the ones you see like on a bookcase are going to be like 3 pounds because they're going to be a little bit smaller. All right, so I just ribbed it. Now I'm getting the outside wet, and I'm going to big C, little c this, and I'm going to push in and lift up. And it comes in like this, a little bit at a time, and I lift up. Nice and controlled. We can start to see that tapering in. Come back down, in, and up. In and up. If I go too far in, it's going to collapse because it has a shelf. So I want to make sure that I have this nice angle here. And at this point, I'm going to come in and do a mini pull. So like my big pulls, I'm just going to come up here. And lift that up. The definition of a bottle, my definition, is that the opening is significantly smaller than the body. That's my definition. Where a vase, the opening is proportionate or similar to the body. And then I'm just going to come in here and push in and lift up. Again, if any of you are interested in this and you get there, we can do some more demos. I love throwing bottles, and they're one of the most useless pottery pieces out there. And I love throwing them, and I love taking them home. But they just sit there and look pretty. That's all they're good for. You could put olive oil in them. You can put some liquid in them. I made a whole set for my brother once so he could do like his balsamic vinegar and whatnots. But my bottles just sit at home and look cool. In theory, I think they look cool. Any other questions on your sheet you need answered? Yeah, why is it so important to make so many? One, repetition is where we learn. Two, you're going to be able to pick your best pieces. And your best pieces may not be identical. You may have two that look similar and two that look similar. And so you'll have a bigger bowl and a smaller bowl. And that's perfectly acceptable for this project. Because my definition of a set for you is that you spent the time and made the bowls, or made the vases, or made the bottles. That's my definition. You're gonna have control over the glaze to make them look similar. But as a beginner, you don't need to make identical pieces. If you do, that's fantastic. If they stack, even better. If you don't, and you just take 3 or 4 pieces home that you made, that you're excited about making, how cool is that? Next question that some people usually ask is, can I make bowls and bottles and vases? And the answer is yes, but you can only save 5 pieces. So you choose what that looks like. So you could make 2 bowls and 2 vases, or 3 bowls and 2 vases, or 4 bowls and a bottle. You can do some things like that.
What are the 2 main ways to make bowls that will show the glass?
So the 2 main ways, we have the pulling technique, which is where you use your hands and pull up. And the second way is you have the rib stretching technique. Yeah, great questions. Yeah, it's a lot of information. On Thursday, we'll go over our hand-built stuff. There'll be another note sheet, all the note sheets from last time. If you weren't here in class, it's on Google Classroom, go do it. We'll talk about other things for hand building, and then you get to tell me where you're gonna spend your time. Now, all of you cannot be on the wheel for 9 days. We just don't have enough wheels. But I'm hoping that most of you go, or half of you are like, I'm gonna do half and half, or I'm gonna do hand build only, which is perfectly acceptable. See you Thursday. Make sure your mugs are turned in by today/tomorrow.
Mr. Jones, they used to have video class like last week or something. First day after yesterday, can I get points for that?
Yeah, put it on the participation or the detention log. It's right behind the tardy log.
Thanks, Jones.
You're welcome, we'll see you. You're welcome, see you.